spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
We'll say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner. Welcome to 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football. I am your host, Brian McFadden. It is Wednesday, October 5th, 2022. Week 4 completely in the rear view, looking ahead to Week 5. And it's Wednesday, which means it's Power Rankings Day. We are live on YouTube and Twitter. Please take this opportunity to go ahead and subscribe if you enjoy the content that we're putting out. I've got, as always on Wednesdays, Jimmy Ray from NFL Stats at NFL_stats on Twitter. We're going to be doing it draft style. This is our third time. We're getting into a groove. Jimmy, how you feeling?
Feeling good. How about you?
Fantastic. Although I said to you before we started recording, these power rankings are getting tougher.
Yeah.
Especially in the middle. It jumbled around so many like 2 and 2, 1 and 3. So I'm expecting, as always, plenty of hate on why we're wrong, and that's okay. That's what we want. Also, I impromptu put up a giveaway earlier today. If you guys are following along on Twitter, I wanted to kind of add a little spice to these power rankings proceedings. So we will do a jersey giveaway. If you follow the instructions on the tweet, follow both accounts, like and retweet, yada, yada, subscribe to this channel. And if you can guess, and there's still time, if you can guess where your favorite team ends up in this power rankings draft, we will choose a winner of the people who guess. And there's not a ton, so there's a decent chance to win. You could join if you pick your team correctly where they land on our power rankings, and you're randomly entered with the other people who correctly picked, and then you get to choose the NFL jersey of your choice. Not too bad, Jimmy, right?
No, it's not too bad at all.
So hope you guys are excited as we are. That we're just going to jump into it. That's how we do. No more chit-chat.
Yep.
No, people are not here for the chit-chat. They want to hear some power rankings. You'll see I see a Benji and Dad Gaming channel. What's up? Thanks for hopping in. You can actually see at the top @_legit football. And then under Jimmy's, you can actually see @NFL_stats. Those are the Twitter handles. 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football starts now. Once again, Anthony got a little trigger happy with the timer. We were tight on the time last week, Jimmy, so let's go ahead and get started. All right.
Am I going first?
Yes, you get number 32 this week. Let's jump in.
Nice. I get the easy pick here. I'm going to go with the Texans. 0-3-1 so far. They had a pretty good fight against the Chargers, and they haven't had any big blowouts, but when you're the only win this team in the NFL, it's hard not to just throw you guys down here. Then it's not a lot of good things to be happy about on either side of the ball, except for Dameon Pierce. He's kind of been the workload. He's getting the full workload now. He was the only running back to get a rushing attempt in Week 4, and I'm excited to see what he can do with the ball. But at least there's a bright side.
Completely agree with that. First 100-yard game. Really surprised with how bad the pass game has looked. Davis Mills really showed some flashes at the end of last season. Worth monitoring. They have been competitive, but they haven't won. That's an easy number 32. Going on to number 31, the team who was 32nd in our first power rankings 2 weeks ago drops right back down after their first win the week before. That's the Carolina Panthers. I would be interested. I don't know who I would pick if the Panthers played the Texans right now. I was surprised that the Panthers were favored last week against Arizona. Not a lot to say here. They've got one of, if not the worst offenses in the NFL. Baker Mayfield playing is about as bad as any quarterback, certainly worse than he's ever played his entire career. There's some spots on defense that kind of get you excited as far as talent. Of course, they still have Christian McCaffrey, but this was a no-brainer for 31.
Yep, yeah, dead last in they're dead last in offensive yards per game, and they're not doing any better on the defense. And Jeremy Chin just went on IR, so that's not going to help them at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Just a couple hours ago, I saw that, so I just want to make note of that. But yeah, good 31 pick. I had them in the same spot.
We're aligned so far. Why don't we keep it rolling and go to number 30?
All right, I have the 2-2 Bears, so the first 2-2 team that are going to come up. I have them pretty low. I don't think their offense is anything to brag about. Justin Fields is on pace. I believe he's on pace for like the fewest completions in a season with starting every game. I mean, he has, like we've mentioned on Monday, he has 34 rush attempts, 34 completions. And then David Montgomery's been injured here and there. He's gotten the ball to Darnell Mooney a little bit, but not enough.
Not as much as he should.
Yeah, no. I mean, this past week was the really like whoa for any fantasy owners. They're like, oh, okay, some good things, but still not really startable just yet. But they just can't put up a lot of points, and as a whole, I think they're kind of down in the dumps right now.
If there was a quarterback that was giving Baker Mayfield a run for his money for worst quarterback in the NFL, it's Justin Fields. That's a sad state of affairs in Chicago. I had them one spot higher, but I certainly can't argue with you putting the Bears at 30.
Yeah, I won't put all the blame on Justin Fields. I would love to see him in a better situation. I don't think the offensive line is anything to brag about. So
agreed. Lack
Justin
of weapons,
Fields,
bad
I hope it
offensive
works
line.
out for you eventually.
Agreed. He's too talented for it not to.
Right.
I had the Commanders at 30, so I'll go ahead and put them at 29. A team that has lost 3 in a row after eking out a win against Jacksonville in Week 1, and has just looked lackluster against the Eagles and then the Cowboys. So they're division foes of the NFC East. Not putting up much resistance at all. Not a lot to like. They've got some skilled players. They have the ability to put points up on offense, but this defense has been pretty porous. Obviously, they seem to be missing Chase Young a lot along that defensive line. They get Brian Robinson back. There you go. What an amazing recovery. He actually is been activated and practicing today, so that's exciting. But not a lot else to like about Washington. Easily put them at 29.
Yep, I had that in my notes as well. I'm very excited to see Brian Robinson come in because he was expected to have the starting role coming into the season. Antonio Gibson kind of took that over when he had that incident happen, but I'm definitely excited to see what he can bring to the table, and I'm excited to see him back so quickly. But yeah, the Commanders, I mean, they're letting up the most sacks in the league. They're the lowest in terms of percentage of drives ending in an offensive score. So, I mean, whenever you do that, that's not going to help your defenses at all.
Yep, let's keep it rolling. Who do you have for 27?
28, I have the Steelers. We talked about him a little bit. We talked about them a little bit before we started filming. But Trubisky was benched. Pickett came in. They provided a little spark. But as a whole, I don't think the spark's going to help them too much, especially with the loss of T.J. Watt. For now, I think when T.J. Watt come back, we could see a different team. But as a whole, we could possibly see Tomlin have his first ever losing season.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's gone long enough without it. It shouldn't tarnish his coaching career. I had them at 27. By the way, if you're on YouTube, I just realized when I made this tier, I've got 28 and 27 mixed up. I'm going to pretend that's
28.
That was on purpose. Oh, look at that. That was an easy fix. All right, so I'll put them at 28. I'm going to put the Colts at 27. I had them below the Steelers. I get you as a homer. Maybe you put them ahead of Pittsburgh. Both teams have a single victory. Yeah, technically the Colts aren't 1-3, but their tie was against our last place team. So not a lot to like. Yes, they beat the Chiefs, but I think we're both in agreement that was really based on more on KC and some of the mistakes they made than necessarily playing up to, for the Colts. They just lost their division match against the Titans at home. In a wide open AFC South, it's now looking like even more of an uphill climb. Hopefully they can turn it on. Now, no Jonathan Taylor out for Thursday night. I mean, you're the Colts fans. Say something hopeful here.
I mean, I'm tired of talking about the Colts at this point. I've had it the past couple times too. Fair Matt enough. Ryan on pace for the most fumbles ever. Very offensive line not playing well. Defense not making enough plays. They've had some good things here and there, but they always get off to slow starts. So we'll kind of wait and see. That's the only thing I'm hoping for at this point. But it's looking like a very bad season for the Colts right now.
All right, well, let's not linger on it. Let's go on to number 26.
Yeah, so for my next pick, I have the New England Patriots coming in, dropping a little bit after the loss to the Packers. I know they did put up somewhat of a fight to the Packers, but with all their injuries at quarterback, it's hard to put them too high after this, thinking they'll beat a lot of teams. It's the Bailey Zapp show now. Shout out to Bailey Zapp for getting the first touchdown by a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
First passing touchdown, that is. But
just
as
like
a whole,
everyone predicted.
Yeah. Yeah, but as a whole, that not enough talent on either side of the ball to really make up for anything. Their coach is the only bright spot that I see, and they have a bottom 10 run defense. The run defense is letting up a lot of points, like over 120 yards against the Ravens in one half, and then almost 200 yards against the Packers. So that won't help your rookie quarterback, and we'll see where their quarterback game comes in the future.
The defense is playing a little bit better, which is to be expected under Belichick. But there's not a lot else to like. This offense had trouble moving the ball in general with Mac Jones. Now they've got Bailey Zappi, who was a 6th-round rookie. It's tough. I had them a couple spots higher, but once again, a lot of these teams are so jumbled. I completely agree and can't argue with it. 26, 25. I'm going to go ahead and put a 2-2 team, and that's the Jets. We have to be real with how the Jets have won their games. They short of that minute and a half, they should have lost that Browns game, that crazy ending. Kudos to them for pulling it off. Yes, Zach Wilson won this game, but he looked pretty bad for the first 3 quarters. The Steelers had every opportunity to win this game. So I'm giving the credit to the Jets. We'll put them ahead of the Steelers and the Colts and the Patriots here. But I still don't think they're a good football team. They have a lot of problems along the offensive line, especially because they've lost multiple players to injury there. Their defense has some playmakers. Sauce Gardner, I think you guys got to win there. You have a lot of young talent, but there's a long way to go. So yes, you're 2-2, but I mean, you kind of should have beat the Steelers, so I can only put them up so high.
Yeah, and shout out to Benji for saying it's definitely going to be Tomlin's first losing season. I think if any season is going to be his first losing season, it's going to be this one. But as for the Jets, I mean, I couldn't have said it better. They have a lot of young talent. I don't think that any of the fans expected them to win too much this season. Shout out to Zach Wilson for having a nice gritty after that touchdown and playing extremely well in the fourth quarter. But 1 quarter out of 4 quarters isn't always going to do it. But shout out to them. And he's the first Jets quarterback to catch a touchdown. Wanted to add that as well. So that's pretty cool.
That's a nice stat. Hey, once again, take what you can get. You won, and your quarterback set a franchise record for actually receiving a touchdown. Tougher matchup against the Dolphins this week. It is at home for the Jets. So, hey, Jets, win that game, and we'll bump you up more here. Let's keep on rolling.
Yep.
Although they looked better this week in London under Andy Dalton, I'm going to go ahead and put the Saints here.
It was my pick, but I did have them at that same spot.
Yeah, they are 1-3. They get Alvin Kamara came back to practice. Michael Thomas still not practicing. Jameis not practicing. I actually think it's a net positive because I think Dalton runs this offense more efficiently, even if he's not as exciting. Chris Olave still looked really good with Dalton at quarterback. They're going to be less turnover prone, less mistake prone. So I can see New Orleans moving up here. But as it stands now, 1-3 with their one victory, they had to come from behind against the Falcons. It's not looking good in New Orleans.
No, it is not. And that was actually my pick, but I did have them in that same spot. I think Andy Dalton could be the answer to kind of having a safer play in. So I think it could go either way.
All right, let's keep on rolling. Who do you got 23?
For 23, I have the Detroit Lions. They had a crazy game with the Seahawks when it was like 48-45. The score got me. They have 281 total points for and points against in their games this season, which is the most through 4 weeks in NFL history, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So they had one big game. They're losing very close. Their defense is just letting up so many holes in the passing game where it's impossible to really tell. But Jared Goff has been playing well, especially without DeAndre Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown this past week. So I'm excited. They're a fun team to watch, but like I said, every week they're playing, bet the over.
It's exciting, and you know what? You have not been able to say it about the Lions much in the past. Yeah. So at the very least, Anthony, our producer, is a Lions fan. The Lions are fun to watch, but they're going to have to shore up that defense if they want to actually come away with wins in some of these games. Completely aligned with you. I also had the Lions at 23. Let's go ahead and put the Seahawks, the team that beat the Lions, moving to 2-2. And yes, it was a great showing, and Geno Smith is a great story. But I think we're at his ceiling. We're not going to keep seeing games like this, especially with tougher matchups. They actually play the Saints next, and I actually like how the Saints match up there at home in New Orleans. So I think we're going to end up swapping these teams next week. But as it stands now, Seahawks 2-2. Geno playing better than Russell Wilson is. So Seahawks fans, be happy with where you're at.
Yeah, very similar situation. So that's why it was so fun to watch this past week with a lot of points on the board. They're the second worst team in points per game allowed. So it's just something to think about. For my next team, this might be a little controversial, might not be, but the 3-1 Giants I have down here. I just don't have a lot of faith in them as a whole. They have wins against the Titans.
We're going to get roasted on Twitter for that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to happen. But, I mean, they have wins against the Titans. They have a win against the Panthers and the Bears. I'm not going to say that they didn't deserve those wins because they obviously won those games, and it's always important to get those wins. But I think 21 is still a beneficial spot until we see something else from them. They have Saquon Barkley, but there's a lot of There's a lot of things to talk about on their offensive line has issues, and Daniel Jones, he's running for his life back there, so it's hard to say. But shout out to Saquon Barkley. He's been the number one running back so far this season. But as
Clearing
a whole,
away their bright spot. They have, I think, their receivers in the game they just played against the Bears had like, I don't know, 70 yards receiving total cumulative or something crazy like that. And Daniel Jones, yes, he practiced today, but it's possible he doesn't play. Tyrod Taylor is in concussion protocol. Davis Webb, we had a story on Legit Football today that they elevated him from the practice squad. We might see Davis Webb in London against the Packers. Yes, the Giants are 3-1. I did have them higher. I actually had them at 15, so quite a bit higher.
Yeah.
But it's more just because they won 3 games. I had to give them some credit, not because I necessarily believe in them long term. Let's keep on rolling.
Yeah, but like Benji said, Galladay isn't playing either, so they really have no wide receivers this week. So we'll see what happens.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, lack of weapons, that's going to hurt them against a much better team in Green Bay, in London. I'm going to go ahead and put the Cleveland Browns here, fresh off a loss to the Falcons. So they've now lost to the Falcons and the Jets. Their wins are against the Panthers and the Steelers. So when I say it like that, I could almost put the Browns lower. They don't have any marquee wins yet. You know, I know Steelers were a division game, but the fact that I like the Falcons. I've said it many times. They're frisky, but Cleveland is a better team on paper. They should have won that game. I know they had Myles Garrett out. He'll be back this week. But yeah, not a lot of faith in Cleveland at this moment.
Yeah, I had them a little higher, but like I said, a lot of these teams, I can't really disagree with you there. They have a nice rushing game so far, number 1 in the league. So that's always good with Nick Chubb, and I've seen some good plays from Kareem Hunt getting between those tackles. So
Cooper got shut down by AJ Terrell in this game, by the way, after 2 straight 100-yard games. 30 seconds left. Let's get one more pick from you before halftime.
All right, Denver Broncos, tomorrow's team that they're playing. They've been pretty disappointing so far this season. Wilson's been outplayed by Geno Smith. Just waiting to see what a marquee win for them is going to look like. As a whole, they've had some disappointing losses, and I think tomorrow is a big game for both the Colts and the Broncos.
Tough injuries, too. I really like how this Broncos defense is played. It's the reason they haven't lost more games, but Randy Gregory is out for an extended period of time. Javonte Williams lost for the season. They got to rely on Melvin Gordon, who's been fumbling. And that offense is still looking a little better. It's getting better each week. The Nathaniel Hackett experience, I'll say that, but it's certainly not something to write home about. All right, so as always, guys, this is my quick plug for Legit Football. If you're not already subscribed, we're going to give you the top 6 stories of the day, 5 minutes or less, delivered direct to your inbox. No need for you to look around for the stories you need. We will break it down, tell you what you need to know, and deliver it to your email each morning. Jimmy, why don't you tell them where to find you on Twitter?
At NFL_stats. You can find me there. I post stats every day from the previous week, from the season as a whole. Some fun stats here and there that I find elsewhere. And then at the real Jimmy Ray is my personal account if you want to see me complain about the Colts and just say random stuff. So that's
awesome. Anthony, while we're at halftime, since I'm doing this draft and selecting the teams and all that, if you see something in the chat that you want to highlight, go ahead and highlight it. I don't have that up in front of me. We'd love to hear from you guys, your thoughts as we go, how we're right, how we're wrong, or if somebody want to make predictions about where your team's going to end up. All right, let's go ahead. Let's jump into the second half. We have 18 teams left to rank. It's going to start to get exciting and spicy. Jimmy, you ready to get this going?
Let's go. Let's get it.
All right, I had this team one spot below the Broncos, and a lot of these are literally coin flips. But I'm going to go ahead and put the Cardinals at 18. I don't know in a neutral field if I would pick the Cardinals over the Broncos. It probably would be an ugly game. I think I'd give the edge to maybe Kyler Murray over Russell Wilson right now, but could easily be convinced other ways. They got the win over the Panthers, but they should have. Fully expected them to win that game. I actually thought they didn't look as dominant as they should. And they've got a very tough matchup with Philadelphia coming to town this week, so I think we'll be bumping them down this time next week.
Yeah, and they started off slow, but then they only allowed 6 points in the second half. Shout out to Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown for being kind of the dominant aspects of that offense. And shout out to JJ Watt.
We try to give at least one bright spot for every one of these teams. So Marquise Brown, absolute great game. Kyler Murray, they won the game for the Cardinals. Let's get number 17 from you.
All right, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. I almost said Oakland for some reason, but the 1-3 Raiders. They got their first win against the Broncos, so I have them over the Broncos, just barely. But Josh Jacobs played well. Their defense, it's Max Crosby, and that's it. I'm interested to see when Chandler Jones might get his first sack of the season after being paid so much. Obviously, sacks isn't necessarily important. You can look at QB pressures and stuff, but I don't believe he's too high in that. So just we want to see some impact from him. But Devontae Adams is playing well. That's why they're kind of in the middle of the pack still, but I'm kind of waiting to see until they get some more wins on their belt.
Yeah, they've been competitive. They really haven't been blown out of the water by any of these teams. Even the Chargers in week 1, you want to see them stack a few of these. Josh Jacobs, if they can rely on that run game more, I think that the arrow's going to be up there. All right, let's get number 17. Wait, we just did 17. Let's do 16. Let's go with the Atlanta Falcons.
Mm-hmm. That's where I had them.
You picked the Raiders, right? I just lost track of what order.
Correct. Yes, I did.
Okay,
the
I'm the evens. Yeah. So Atlanta Falcons, frisky team. Should have won week 1 against the Saints. Almost came back against the Rams, and has now beaten 2 wins in a row, beaten the Seahawks, and then the Cleveland Browns with their run game. Drake London, Kyle Pitts not involved, didn't matter. Cordell Patterson going out didn't matter. You had Caleb Huntley. You have Tyler Algier. This offensive line is actually one of the better run blocking offensive lines in the NFL. That is a surprising fact that I didn't see coming. I like how this Arthur Smith offense is running right now, and I'm excited to watch the Falcons going forward.
Yeah, out of their 4 games, the decision has been made by a combined 12 points in 4 games, so a combined 3 points difference in each game, which is absolutely insane. So I'm excited to see how they play throughout the season. And shout out to Benji. He said Falcons put up points. That's right. They sure do.
Which makes them fun to watch, like the Lions, except their defense is a little better than the Lions, so I like it.
Yep. All right, for my next pick, I have the Titans. So they started out 0-2. They are now 2-2 against a couple solid teams. Derrick Henry is coming back to royalty. He's playing pretty well.
He looked more like himself this week against the Colts.
Yeah, past a couple weeks. I don't know if it's just the defenses. I think the Colts rush defense is pretty good, but Derrick Henry is just finding his flow a little bit. Jeffrey Simmons is playing well on the defensive side of the ball, is what I noticed there. I still kind of find them as a weird team. That's why I kind of have them in the middle still. They're tied for the lead in the AFC South, though. So.
Still haven't seen a complete game from them. They seem to be playing really good halves, and the halves have been good enough to get them victories over the Raiders and now the Colts. So a little bit worried about them long term, but
sure,
they're in a division. Eager to see when they play Jacksonville what that looks like. Let's go ahead and move. I had the Titans at 16, so kind of right around here.
Okay.
14. I'm gonna go ahead and put the LA Chargers. I actually think we had them slightly higher, and I know that they won, but it wasn't a decisive victory. Yes, Austin Eckler looked good. But they let up the Houston Texans come back into this game and actually get to within 3 in the fourth quarter. So they're not closing out games. They got absolutely destroyed by Jacksonville the week before. I love their talent on paper, but they have some major injuries. Yeah, 14 feels right for LA here.
Yep, Slater's out. Joey Bosa is going to be out for a while, but Justin Herbert, 300-plus pass yards in 7 straight road games. One of 2 QBs to do that. Eckler's getting a few touchdowns a game, which is always cool. And Mike Williams steps up when Keenan Allen's out. So the offense is, stat-wise, looks about right, but they're still struggling a little bit throughout games and getting wins against bad teams. So we'll see what happens. So for my next pick, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who just lost against the top team of the Eagles. I mean, they lost against a good team. It's hard to bring them too low. At 13, I know people are going to be like, "Oh, the Jaguars lost." Trevor Lawrence had 5 turnovers, 4 fumbles lost, which is absolutely insane.
That weather was horrible.
Yeah,
at least 2 of those were just the ball slipping out of his hands, and they got out to a 14-0 start.
Right, yeah, 14-0 start, and then the Eagles just came back and dominated. But I mean, the Jaguars looked good against a good team, or they competed against a good team. That is. So I'm excited to see how they go throughout the rest of the season, but I think this is a good spot for them.
I agree. I had them at exactly 13. We're 100% line there. Here's what I'm interested if we have a differing opinion here. I'm going to go ahead and put the Bengals at 12.
Okay.
They've won 2 in a row. They just knocked off the undefeated Dolphins after Tua went out, which is, they did have the lead at least. But they're still 2-2. I still see a lot of problems. They cannot run the ball. Mixon is averaging like 3.2 yards per carry. This offensive line is still having trouble protecting Burrow. They did a better job against Miami, but that Miami team was exhausted after their Buffalo game. So I want to see them string together some wins. Huge matchup against the Ravens this week on Sunday Night Football. You win this game, Cincy's, I guarantee we're putting you guys in the top 10 next week.
Yeah, the offensive line. I had them at 11, so I had them around the same spot, so we can't really argue anything there. The rushing game could use some work. Their passing game, I feel like somebody already steps up, whether it's T. Higgins, whether it's Tyler Boyd, whether it's Jamar Chase. One of them is going to have a good game, but I'd like to see more from the rushing game and some of their defense as well. But I'm excited to see that Bengals-Ravens game. I think that'll be big for them and maybe for the Ravens.
One of my most excited games to watch this week. Who do you have at 11? We got just over 8 minutes left.
I have the Minnesota Vikings, the 3-1 Minnesota Vikings. I'm still not too high on them. I think we probably differ from them throughout, but they had a close win in London against a banged up Saints team, so I don't really take too much from that. But they've been finding ways to win games. But I think Kirk Cousins will always stay in that area of his stats are really good, but he doesn't always get wins against good teams. So I'm kind of waiting for that, but I'm excited to see how they play.
Yeah, I'm giving them a little bit more boost for the fact that they are still winning these games, even if they're ugly, but they are 3-1. Their only loss is to the number one team. I think there's no surprise that the only undefeated team will be a number one team here. So I would have put them higher. I had them about 3 or 4 spots higher. I'm going to go ahead and put the LA Rams here. I initially, obviously, I had them outside of my top 10, but they just have, there's a lot of weaknesses with this Rams team. I know they still have a lot of their top end stars, but they actually lost quite a bit of talent, and they've suffered injuries, especially along the offensive line. They were dominated against the San Francisco 49ers. That's a great defense, yes, but they couldn't run the ball. They couldn't pass the ball. The 49ers were able to move the ball on offense when they needed to. This hasn't been the dominant Rams defense we've seen in the past. A lot of questions to answer. A big game against Dallas this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of easy to see what their offensive game plan is when they throw to Cooper Kupp 19 times a game, and then when Cooper Kupp's not open, then they throw to Tyler Higbee. Tyler Higbee has the most targets out of any tight end so far, so he's been pretty good for them this year. But when you only have a couple targets and you don't try to get everybody else involved, it kind of stinks. But Cooper Kupp is always open, but just not any long plays that you're like, wow, that's awesome. They're just catches and go a few yards, and there was just a lot of plays they could have done better. And then their red zone attempts, they got a bunch of field goals, so that's always tough.
Yeah, a lot to clean up there. All right,
number 9. I had a lot of hope for them against this team, but I have the 49ers, the team that just beat them at the 9 spot. Jimmy G looked great under the pocket, like we talked about. Nick Bosa is looking like a defensive player of the year with 30 quarterback pressures this season, which is 8 more than any other player. I'm excited to see that. Debo's been fantastic. Their running game is always decent, no matter who's at that position. But I have them at this spot right above the Rams.
I'm going to go ahead and jump into my next team because I'm going to compare them to the 49ers because I had the 49ers ahead of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in my personal rankings. But this is how the draft works, and I'm going to explain why. So the Bucs team, this is a team that has really struggled to move the ball on offense. Yes, there have been injuries, but even at the start of the season, they haven't had that kind of explosive Tom Brady-led offense that we've seen in years past. Their strength has been the defense. Well, guess what? Their defense just got absolutely dominated up and down the field by the Kansas City Chiefs, not just Patrick Mahomes, which he did, but in the run game, the offensive line of Kansas City was pushing that defensive line, that normally stout defensive line of the Bucs around. So I think there should be a lot more red flags in Tampa Bay than people are saying at this point. So I actually had the Bucs a few spots lower, but that's how the draft works. We've got them at number 8. Hope for their sake that they can bounce back. But yeah, it's not all rosy in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think they're one of the better defenses in the NFL still, despite the Chiefs running all over them, because I think the Chiefs can just do that against good teams, especially when they have kind of a rivalry going, when they've played against each other in important games. But I see your point. I think they're both pretty close, and I just gave the ups to Tom Brady and his offense, and I'm excited to see him kind of get some people back and keep the offensive rolling. But I think they put up some good points against that team.
It'd be interesting to monitor them specifically going forward.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's hear number 7 from you.
Yeah, for my number 7 spot, I have the Dallas Cowboys. They're rushing up towards the top. Anyway, they're the first they're the first Cowboys quarterback. He's the first Cowboys quarterback to start 4-0. They keep pulling off wins. I'm excited to see Dak come back and play with this offensive line, with these weapons that they have, with this defense who they might not be putting up great stats right now, but I mean they're somebody's always stepping up, and Trayvon Diggs getting interceptions all the time. You can basically call it. He's a top corner in the NFL, easy. Mike Parsons, he's a top linebacker, defensive end in the NFL, easy. He's a great pass rusher. I mean, there's just a lot to love about this team, and people keep saying Cooper Rush might start over Dak Prescott. I don't think that's going to happen.
That's crazy. That's
Cooper
crazy.
Rush, I mean,
I actually have them coming back down to earth and losing to the Rams in LA this week. I think that makes the decision easy next week against Philadelphia for them to start Dak. But hey, Cowboys 3-1, 3-0 this season under Cooper Rush, 4-0 altogether. Their offensive line has played better than I thought they would. This defensive line has actually been one of the best in the entire NFL. A lot to like. So yeah, number 7, we are fully aligned there. Number 6, I'm going to go ahead and put the Baltimore Ravens. I did not want to drop them too far down. They nearly beat the Bills, who was, number 1 in our power rankings for 2 weeks in a row. They are between that last, end of game loss and just a fourth quarter meltdown. They could be undefeated. That's how good they're playing, especially on offense. Definitely has some issues on the defensive side of the ball. Their defense did play better this game against Josh Allen and the Bills. But I still think number 6 makes sense. Lamar Jackson still playing great. I expect them to bounce back this week.
Yeah, nothing to be upset about other than the fact that they blew leads against the Dolphins and Bills. I mean, those are 2 solid teams, and I mean, going into the season, they have a lot to improve, a lot to look at, but I think they're still going to be a solid team. For my next pick, I have your favorite team, the Miami Dolphins. Some people might have. I think I saw them kind of drop a little bit more, but I think they're still a solid team, even with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback right now. I think Tua's going to come back and kind of put the offense back into what they were. But I think if you throw the ball to Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, I think some good things are going to happen. I think they're just a good team overall, and I think they're going to beat the Jets this week.
Yeah, they have a good bounce back matchup against the Jets. I think Teddy Bridgewater actually said this on Twitter, is tailor-made for an offensive like this. Kind of the Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, just get the ball to your playmakers, let them do yards after catch. Waddle, Tyreek, he's accurate. He's usually pretty good about making those kind of decisions. So, yeah, I don't think we see too much of a bump. I also had them at 5. Moving on to number 4, I've got the Green Bay Packers. We're getting into the top 4 of the NFL right here. Moved to 3-1. I thought they would win by more against the Patriots, but hey, they still found a way to win in overtime. Finally seeing some pass catchers get regularly involved. Romeo Doubs had a touchdown for a second straight week, almost had 2 touchdowns, dropped it at the last second. You still have that great run game with Aaron Jones. The defense has playmakers. A lot to like about Green Bay right now.
Yep, and now they're tied for the most wins by a franchise in NFL history. So that's
about to pass the Bears next week.
Yep, shout out to them. And now they're playing in London this week. So we'll see. The first time in London, apparently. I think they're the last team to have to go all the way out there.
Last team to play in London, correct.
Yeah.
All right, we got a minute left and three left to go. Let's hear number 3, Jimmy.
The magical Kansas City Chiefs, the team that put up 41 points against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Travis Kelce's now 5th all-time in receiving yards. I mean, what's not to say about the Kansas City Chiefs? And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is putting up a lot of stats too. They're kind of looking at him for some touchdowns. Their defense has some good playmakers, and I'm excited to see where they go. I think they're a top 2 team in the AFC, and I think the 2 spots probably going to tell us who the number 1 team is.
Yes, and I could easily see KC rising. They were so dominant against the Bucs, but there's only one undefeated team. I can't put them at second, so I am going to put those Buffalo Bills at number 2. I'm not one of those guys who the Bills, they're still my Super Bowl favorite, but there's only one team that's been undefeated, and with 15 seconds left, I don't want to talk too much about the Bills. Why don't you tell us about the number 1 team you're going to pick here?
The 4-0 Eagles. They also have the 4th pick in the NFL draft next year right now from the Saints. So 4-0, 4th pick. Things are looking up for them. Miles Sanders is playing well when Jalen Hurts doesn't put up the stats that are necessary. I love seeing Miles Sanders get the credit he deserves. He's a solid young running back that will only improve. But they're 4-0 for the first time since 2004. Jalen Hurts is an MVP candidate, and everybody on the defense is playing well. Somebody's always going to step up, whether it's Darius Slay, James Bradbury, Hassan Reddick's been playing well. Nobody's been talking about that pickup. Just a lot of good off-season acquisitions. Just a lot of love for the first team in our power rankings.
Yeah, and quickly to add on to that before we wrap up the show, they don't really seem to have any weaknesses, whether it's offensive line, defensive line, secondary, pass catchers, running back. Miles Sanders went off this week. Jalen Hurts playing like an MVP caliber quarterback, even when the weather isn't great and the adversity's there, getting down 14-0 to the Jaguars. this was maybe the most impressive win for the Eagles for me because they faced some adversity, because they bounced back, because they were able to switch to a run-heavy approach to attack Jacksonville where they thought they could. Philly's firing on all cylinders. I expect them to win again against Arizona this week and just probably stay number one in our power rankings next week. Guys, thank you for tuning in. If you're listening, if you're watching and you're not already subscribed, please do that. If you entered the contest, if you gave your prediction, you can still do it in the comments of this YouTube video. You can also do it on Twitter. Just go to @_legitfootball. Find the tweet. We're going to announce. You will have already had to have picked your winners. So whoever picked where they ended up by the end of this show, which is now, and got it correct, we will choose from those winners. I can't imagine there were too many of them. And hey, you'll get to choose a jersey of your choice. So close. Thought they would have the 49ers at 7. Maybe I did. That's the beauty of the draft. That's what makes this exciting. Benji and Dad said he thought we would have the Niners at 7. I had them a little higher, but that's what makes the draft fun. Jimmy, any last words before we wrap up the show?
No, thank you, Benji, for throwing the comments around, and I'm excited to see where Week 5 takes us. We might have completely different thoughts about completely different teams, and that's the beauty of it. That's why we keep playing each week, and that's why we take all those games into account. But 13 games left of the regular season. Just trying to enjoy it while it lasts.
Guys, we will have a graphic up. Shout out to Gold Tech, who's been doing those graphics for us on Twitter. So once again, tell us how right or wrong we were. Probably wrong. Thanks for listening and watching. We've got the Thursday Night Football and live viewer fantasy questions tomorrow at 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. And Friday, we have a new betting co-host that's going to come on Fridays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, as we do our game pick show. Thanks for listening and watching, guys. This has been 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football. We'll see you tomorrow. That's spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
We'll say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner.